The big print is coming. Governments are about to flood the system with more money than ever before, and the ones who aren't prepared will pay the price. For example, looking at under the lens of the traditional finance gurus, which is Larry Lepard, given his intake as to the fundamental problem that we are facing, right, which is, he made several points. The first of which is to do with this sovereign debt crisis and the inflation's hidden dangers. He also talks about why the middle class is being destroyed or has been destroyed as a result. And he's not just looking at it in recent times, but also looking back in history, because this is nothing new. It's just gotten worse, which is what has brought us to present day debt crisis that we are seeing. And also he mentions why sand money matters, and at the end why he thinks that there's just going to be this imminent urgent call for a monetary reset. If you recall, at the point of 1971, where we were all backed or underpinned by gold, which at that point was the hardest asset, but not anymore ever since Bitcoin has come into existence, ever since 2009. And ever since then, we are seeing that Bitcoin is demonetizing gold and slowly but surely will overtake gold's helm as the world's hardest asset. So he's made some rather interesting points that I want to share with you. Now, if I touch on the first point, he actually has warned that we are still immersed in this ongoing sovereign debt crisis, and how inflation, much like alcoholism, has good effects at first but devastating consequences later. He emphasizes that people only wake up when the pain becomes too unbearable and they have to actually visit their doctor to kind of fend off or remediate the aftermath consequences of that excessive drinking. Well, it's the same analogy applies to the present day debt crisis and this rather abuse of inflation and money printing. And then this leads into the other point where he mentions the big print, why it's inevitable we're going to be seeing even more money printing from governments, right? Because at the end of the day, even though he has warned there is this famous big print coming soon, which is nothing other than a massive money printing event to prop up those failing economies, the fiat economies, and why he urges viewers to prepare themselves for even more inflation as central banks run out of options and steam. And then this leads into the point where why does sand money matters and why we should take it at face value and take it seriously. Well, he thinks that it fixes the root cause of the inflation problem and the money printing problem. He stresses that unsound money is actually the root cause of the society's problems, not politics. He argues as well that unless we return to sound money like Bitcoin, the system will continue to spiral out of control. Not just money printing, but even takes it forward into more wars, because at the end of the day, to finance wars, you need money. And what is the quickest route to earth for governments to achieve just that? Money printing. And the consequence, inflation, and the rest of the denominated fiat held savings by the rest of us in our accounts will debase in value, and that would lead into poverty. That's really, if you like to link it in that kind of trajectory or journey, this is why we should take it really seriously, because at the end of the day, it's going to affect our wealth. And this has been going on for so many decades, and why he mentioned that this monetary reset is going to happen, which means returning to sound money, stating that if society chooses this path, economies can quickly recover. But without this choice, the crisis would only worsen over time. And I think this is where he made reference of kicking the can along the road many times over from governments, no matter the ideology or the actual colouring of the political party. There's always been that kick in the can, i.e. kicking the issue of more money printing along the road. And it comes to a point where the debt is going to increase significantly, and the interest payments of those debts will again continue to increase. So there's going to come to a point where governments wake up to the fact that they need to do something. There is going to be that urgent call of a monetary reset. So this is the reason why I have explained in many of my other videos in my channel, which is the reason why you should subscribe to it, where I made references that people ought to take control back at their individual level, because rest assured there'll be no government, no central banks or commercial banks for that matter, or any other so-called non-profit organization that are going to take our own interests seriously. At the end of the day, it has to be upon us as individuals to actually fix the problem. And one of the solutions to fix that problem is to look out for what is the most desirable hard asset that we all know. Okay, it might be real estate, it might be maybe gold, but for me, those assets aren't hard, right? Because they're, rather than as a store of value, which is how the majority of us have treated these assets historically, it's more of a utility. Real estate's not meant to be as a store of value. It has more of a utility value, i.e. people will naturally need to live into these real estate dwellings for their urgent, immediate need, not as an investment, and certainly not as a store of value. And the same can be said about gold. Gold is not sound money. It used to be, not anymore because of Bitcoin. And of course, there's different ways of how gold is actually materialized. It's mostly as a jewelry. I've got a gold ring that I wear on my finger. It's more as a utility value type commodity. It's not, there's this misconception that people think that gold is store of value. No, it's more of a synthetic need to actually portray a wealth in the form of jewelry, gold rings, gold coins to trade with. It's not meant to be as a store of value, which naturally brings into my final point, is why Bitcoin is ultimately that non-synthetic store of value technology that people can part some of its wealth to store into the Bitcoin asset. That for me is the end message. It's not just me saying it, it's many other TradeFi converts into Bitcoin where they're advocating the same message that I'm saying to you now. And also even governments are starting to advocate the same thing. You've got a lot of news out there that President Trump is going to be proposing to add Bitcoin in its US National Strategic Reserve. You've got other governments who are buying Bitcoin behind the scenes, even though they haven't made any public announcements yet, which is normal, because if they were to publicize what they're doing, well, there's going to be this night and day effect in terms of price appreciation of Bitcoin, which is not what they want to achieve, at least not yet. So what I'm trying to say is Bitcoin is inevitably being talked about an awful lot. And when that happens, that's when Bitcoin is rapidly becoming that store of value asset that everyone needs to have a piece of. And in my other videos that I've explained, there's only going to be 21 million of these coins out in circulation of Bitcoin, which is in stark contrast with gold, which can easily be reproduced. People can unearth more gold over time. This is not the case with Bitcoin, because once the 21 million hard cap limit has been reached, that's it. That's the end game. No more can be produced. That is why ultimately is that store of value. And that's the last message I'm going to leave you today. If you enjoyed today's episode, please don't forget to hit the like button, to share the video to your friends and colleagues at work. And if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to my channel, as I regularly post some interesting videos such as these, anything to do with Bitcoin, blockchain technology, and the future finance. I'll see you next time.